Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and with me Akshay Joshi. He's the head of industry and partnerships at the World Economic Forum, the Cybersecurity Center.
Correct.
Akshay, welcome. This is the last session that we are doing here at the forum for Business Today Television at the India Today Group studios here. And I want to begin by asking you for a recap of some of the key learnings and discussions that you yourself have been involved in when it comes to the world of cybersecurity. Clearly a very big, massive challenge and a lot of investment put in by everyone. What are the key takeaways?
Thank you very much, Siddharth. And obviously, it's very good to end on a very important topic of cybersecurity. So just to give you some context here, we launched a report. This is our flagship report called the Global Cybersecurity Outlook. And one of the biggest findings that we found was the growing cyber inequity globally. Now, what does cyber inequity mean? It's essentially the gap between organizations that are cyber resilient and those that are not. What we've observed is that this notion of minimum viable cyber resilience, when we did it back in 2022, 67% of organizations said that they were complying with the minimum baseline per se. When we did it and launched it this year, that percentage has reduced drastically to roughly about 30%. So this drop is very significant because it means that the healthy middle of companies that were maintaining a baseline is shrinking. So what it also means is that some of the larger organizations that have the resources and capabilities are getting better at it, but those that are the most vulnerable are actually not doing as well. The second element is obviously the technology lens. And a lot of the conversation has been about AI, quantum. And whenever we look at the advent of new technologies, there is always a cybersecurity related component to it, whether we are deploying these technologies in a responsible and secure manner so that we can harness the benefits for humanity as a whole, right? So we need to be very mindful of that, and that was one of the things that also emerged very strongly. Now, linking it back with the cyber inequity gap, right? So it's obviously exacerbated by technologies coming into the mix because it enhances the complexity, but at the same time, there is a pronounced dearth of cybersecurity talent. The global shortage is estimated at roughly around 4 million executives. If we take the Indian context, that number is roughly about 800,000. So 1/5 of the global shortage of cybersecurity talent resides in India.
That's a massive number, Akshay, and I'm interrupting you here because the immediate thought that comes after your remark, and you shared that number with us, is there are practically millions of engineering BTech graduates who come out of school every year, and this year the job market has been a bit tough even for the top rung of colleges. And I wonder, is cybersecurity a good career option? Any thoughts on that?
You know, it's a fantastic career option. I went to business school, and let me take an anecdote. I went to business school and had a conversation with roughly about 150 students in the class in terms of whether they were considering a career in cybersecurity. Not one of them was thinking about it. So as an industry, what we've not done well is create...
And where was this?
This was in the UK. But it was really around the narrative of cybersecurity and how industry has shaped a narrative such that, being a cybersecurity professional is aspirational. And so there's a lot of work that needs to go into that. But if you look at the demand and if you look at the demographic in India, we definitely have a technological bent of mind, right? We have some of the best engineering institutes globally. The talent that is coming out is extremely high quality. It's really about, channeling them into cybersecurity where there is a huge demand.
So what can policymaker, educational institutions and students themselves do to sort of avail of this opportunity? And those jobs that you said, 800,000 odd, are they all focused internally, or are these jobs which will serve the globe from while sitting in capability centers in India?
So really, I think when we think about what needs to be done, right, I would say that it's more about building awareness. That's the most important aspect. Now, cybersecurity is an issue that is not just a concern for the enterprise per se, but it's something that affects common individuals, right? So there are lots of people who feel the pain whenever there is a fraud or a scam, right? So cybersecurity is a whole of society issue, and it's not something that is restricted to organizations. So if you're able to bring a message which is about safeguarding the promise of our digital world, then, it can be inspiring for a lot of people to make a foray into this domain, and lots can be done there.
Let's also continue on this point. In cybersecurity, what are the most sort of latest trending domains that the world is perhaps still learning to play catch up with?
So I think one of the biggest issues is that of ecosystem risk. Now think about it. I started by talking about cyber inequity, where I said that some of the large organizations are doing well as it pertains to being cyber resilient. Now,
because they have the budgets, they have the
correct,
sort of
and the access to the talent, right? Also, if you think about the dearth of talent that I spoke about, now if it's supply and demand economics, right? If there is a commodity that is extremely scarce, then they also command a premium and not everybody can afford it, right? Now, if you're thinking about some of these large organizations, if they could exist as an island, in that they were just sort of responsible for their own environment and were not connecting with anybody else, everything should in principle be fine. But the reality is that the internet is extremely interconnected. You work with a lot of suppliers who are like third parties, small and medium enterprises, which are essentially the bulk of any economy. So unless we manage to embed security across the entire ecosystem, we are only as strong as the weakest link in the chain.
What does AI mean for cybersecurity?
So AI is an extremely interesting one because we have to look at it both from the risk side of things, but also the opportunity side of things. And, there is often this temptation to go on just one tangent, which I find is not the right approach. So if we look at some of the risks, in the short term, of course, as we are seeing the proliferation of disinformation, misinformation, or for that matter, phishing tends to be one of the most effective vectors through which people fall prey to cybercrime. Now, how would an average person detect phishing, right? You would look at a mail that was not drafted appropriately, but with AI, you can see perfectly crafted mails. Oftentimes you also see that, you can have voice messages that can be created, etc. So people can fall prey to it. So that's on the risk side of things, and there's lots that needs to be done. But at the same time, if you're thinking about the opportunity side, AI can help us better detect phishing and the likes as well.
Absolutely.
Then you have, when we look at from a cybersecurity perspective, the traditional security operations center where you're doing threat detection and the likes, right? AI and the ability for it to go through large data sets and get better threat intelligence, it can really help us a lot.
Okay. Let's turn back to India and a country that is mobile first, which has hundreds of millions of mobile users, many of them who might not be very technically sort of aware and would obviously in the financial world, and we are seeing a lot of cases being reported, fall prey to a lot of these scams. For the authorities, for the regulators, what could be the ideal approach for securing such people?
So really, I think I always go back to the role of awareness. We've seen rapid digitalization across societies, but has the commensurate education in terms of bringing these people on board followed, right? So I think that's the big step, and this is a problem that people across the world face, right? Some are not digital natives, others are more savvy. So we need to have approaches whereby there is greater education and awareness. And a lot of the financial institutions are, in fact, having a lot of campaigns that they have in terms of communication and all to educate users in terms of what is a legit mail, what is not to share their OTPs over the phone and the likes. So awareness can play a pretty significant role over there.
Absolutely. Let's come back to the original point about inequity. For our viewers to understand this better, what's the geographical spread of inequity? Is it that the least developed countries have obviously the greatest risk, or is it because the most advanced countries have greater financial crime and that's why they face greater risk? How's this spread across the globe?
So look, the report doesn't actively measure by geography, it measures more by organization size, right? Okay. But having said that, obviously, I think in some of the more developed markets, there has been more of consideration that's been given to cybersecurity, for example, because of the regulations that exist over there. So if we take the United States, for example, there's a national cybersecurity strategy. The Securities and Exchange Commission has come out with some guidelines that introduce certain liabilities on board members and executives. So obviously, when there is a regulatory push, it raises the bar in terms of cybersecurity and the practices that organizations are following. So in India also, I do know that the cybersecurity policy is going to be, the new cybersecurity policy is going to be launched soon, and we eagerly await that.
And are you aware of what the key focus points would likely be?
No, we're waiting to sort of review it once it comes out.
Well, and that would be a very important development for the size of the economy that India is and the number of users. Sometimes India is also about volumes, and we see that especially in the fintech space, the volumes are absolutely staggering. The number of touch points, the number of people who are involved are very, very important. Akshay, as we wind down this conversation, may I ask you about your own life journey? How did you end up doing the kind of work that you're doing? You did mention business school and the UK. Were you studying there, or were you just a speaker at some
No,
conference?
I was studying there, but in terms of my career journey, I started working on board merchant ships. So I was in the merchant navy for the first 10 years of my career. Subsequently, I decided to pursue an MBA program after trying out a few land-based opportunities in Delhi and Mumbai. Post that, I went back to India for a short stint before joining the World Economic Forum.
And how many years have you been here?
It's been about 9 years now.
One more example of what I call the global Indian. Fascinating journeys. Many people who run very, very large corporations are very well known, but people like Akshay also part of the diaspora, which is doing stellar work all across the world. Akshay, I wish you all the very best for all your future endeavors. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
With that, it's a wrap. The final wrap from the World Economic Forum during our 5-day non-stop coverage. I've enjoyed doing this. I hope you also enjoyed doing this. Hope to be back very soon. Until then, bye-bye. Take care. Namaskar.
Darwin Platform Group of Companies is one of the fastest growing diversified Indian conglomerates with global footprints. It is setting up offices globally and tying up with companies across the globe for multiple sectors. The company has ventured into real estate and construction, stockbroking and finance, arms and ammunition, mining, airlines and many other sectors.
In today's rapidly evolving business environment, when risk is omnipresent, managing risks is no longer just about ticking a few boxes. Businesses need to maintain a panoramic view of risks to stay ahead of the curve. Join us to explore how organizations can rethink risk to unlock new possibilities and become fit for future. At PwC presents De-Risking the Future in collaboration with Business Today.
As an Indian, one of the most fascinating things about being in a place like Switzerland at this moment is that a lot of things that you and I now take absolutely for granted in India are not available in what is supposed to be a developed Western country like Switzerland, and that too a place which is supposed to be as high-end as Davos. And I'm sure that must tickle the heart and the imagination of our Telecom and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, who's now joining us at the India Today Business Today studios at the World Economic Forum at Davos. Minister, welcome.
Hello.
It's so fascinating that so many things, whether it's just scanning, paying, digital, cashless payments, or even 5G, which we are taking as a given and cribbing about 5G की भी speed अच्छी नहीं है, some